Welcome to the Humans and Earth podcast. We bring you inspiration and practical resources for healing our planet and ourselves. It's time for soulful contributions that regenerate life on Earth. I'm Shara Arman, a thought leader and teacher who believes we're ready to renew Earth and heal ourselves in the process. You can find our work online at humansandearth.com and on Instagram at schoolhumansearth. I'd love for you to be on our newsletter list and receive our updates on Instagram. Please share our work at the School for Humans and Earth with anyone you think might be interested, and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to this podcast so that we can include more and more people in the regeneration revolution that I believe is happening on planet Earth. Welcome to today's episode. Welcome back to Humans and Earth. I am really excited to have with us today Dr. Kathleen King. She is an expert on chronic illness, trauma, relationship and attachment repair, and inner child healing. She has the rare combination of an in-depth doctoral level education and training, over 20 years of coaching others in the health and healing world, and having gone through her own heroine's journey of spending 2 decades of her life navigating debilitating illness. She is now living out her calling as an oracle of primal trust to liberate others from illness and trauma consciousness. Specifically, she holds a doctorate degree in physical therapy with postgraduate training in orthopedic manual therapy and somatic movement and neuroscience. Her additional training has focused primarily on neuroplasticity-based healing methods and limbic system rewiring programs, such as the dynamic neural retraining system, the lightning process, the Gupta program, Joe Dispenza's work, Hannah Somatics movement, the Sarno method, German new medicine theory, the emotional freedom technique, Psych-K, heart math, NLP, matrix energetics, and memory repatterning. I am personally familiar with Dr. Kat's work because I'm a member of her Primal Trust program. I have not talked on this podcast very much yet about my own healing journey. I may do that at some point, but having experienced my own lengthy situations with trauma, tick-borne illness, mold illness, and several other diagnoses, and having studied a number of healing modalities and seen many practitioners over the past 2 decades, I can say that I think Dr. Kat's Primal Trust is the premier mind-body healing program for those experiencing chronic illness. I am delighted to bring her insights on human flourishing to the Humans and Earth podcast. If you are listening to this podcast and you yourself experience chronic illness, I absolutely recommend that you look at the Primal Trust website and Dr. Kat's Instagram account and her many offerings on YouTube. We're going to be talking today somewhat more about her big vision of healing humanity and the world. We will definitely, I'm sure, be touching on healing chronic illness. But if that is your interest as a listener, Dr. Kat really does have all kinds of wonderful materials free online along with her program. So welcome, Dr. Kat. I'm really happy to have you here.
Thank you so much. I love these kind of conversations. I've loved getting to be involved with your journey, and it's truly an honor to have you bring me to your audience.
Well, thank you for being here. As we talked about, we thought we would start with the really big picture vision, and then we'll touch back on some of the specifics. But I know that although you teach many, many specific healing and wellness strategies, you have a very big sense of how the personal health, healing, or recovery journey fits into the planetary picture. So please tell us about that.
Sure. I've often thought that one of the biggest limitations of society as a whole is the individual's capacity for self-regulation, meaning that if we were all self-regulated adults or had a nervous system that was able to come back into calm, where we could respond instead of react, where we felt self-empowered, the way that we would interact with each other, with businesses, with society would be completely different. And, there's all this talk about awakening and ascension and peace on earth, but it begins in our own nervous system, the bodies that we were given, the matter that we incarnated into, and the ability to consciously self-regulate our biology, the ability to consciously affect our own feelings, our own emotions, our own health, our conversations, the way we connect. So to me, I feel like the work that I've been called to bring is foundational for creating change, healing, peace in the world.
Yeah, I completely agree. And this self-regulation piece is, quite obviously missing in a lot of areas of the health and wellness movements, spiritual movements, even social justice, peace movements. So how do you envision or how do you like to describe the process of learning self-regulation? As you kind of alluded to, some of us learn that growing up in our families of origin. A lot of us don't. The culture and the educational systems are teaching it very spottily.
Mhm.
So tell us more about what this looks like.
Well, I feel like, first of all, there needs to be a shift in the consciousness of how important this is, how this skill should be taught to children. It should be part of every core curriculum. How is your nervous system? How are you feeling? Are you able to respond? Are you able to speak and make eye contact? Are you able to connect? Do you feel safe to go after your vision? Do you feel safe to sign up for that program, to bring your word into the world? Do you feel safe to go to the gathering of your neighbors? This concept that how safe are you in the body? How connected are you in the world? How empowered do you feel to regulate your own emotional state? How empowered do you feel to affect your own health? And that's a whole other thing I would love to speak about, is the misperception that our health is dependent on having a good doctor, a good program, like all this outside influence.
Good genes.
Good genes. We have been disempowered in so many ways, and the first step is a conscious, collective consciousness that says taking responsibility for your emotional state is a priority as a human being. Taking responsibility for your own health and well-being, taking responsibility for learning what your nervous system does, how to regulate it, even if you've had trauma or not had trauma. Yes, some people grow up in wonderful homes where their nervous system is regulated because it was modeled to them, and that's wonderful. And I think that they have a responsibility of helping others who didn't have that modeling. This is what it looks like. This is what connection feels like. But ultimately, how do people start? It's about, taking an internal inventory. When I wake up every day, how do I feel about my life? Am I resistant to my partner? Am I afraid to get out there and start my business? Am I critical? Am I irritated? Am I stuck in fear about my body? Where am I at? What is the state of my consciousness? What is my nervous system doing? And you start with an awareness. As we know, it's always about awareness as the first step. And that's what I'm saying, is that the collective consciousness, I believe, really needs to bring more awareness to nervous system regulation as a priority for a society. And then from there, it's looking for, like, okay, I've got issues with emotional outbursts. I've got health issues, or I'm afraid I collapse when someone asks me what I think and I don't speak the truth. So the next piece would be finding resources for your nervous system. And that is, the work of research, or asking hopefully a trusted practitioner, hey, my nervous system doesn't feel good. What are some programs, some people, some tools that I can learn? Once you decide to go on that journey, there's a plethora of tools and people and processes, and you find what resonates. I, of course, have created a whole program that I feel like can take people from the beginning through the whole process, but there are many programs out there. And so, it starts with awareness. How are you feeling? How are you behaving? Is your nervous system holding you back from creating that life you love, holding you back from your relationships? Are you in victim consciousness, meaning the world is happening to me and I'm out of control? Or are you in your creator consciousness? And again, it comes back to your own regulation of your nervous system.
I think this is still such a revolutionary message, I'm thinking, as you explain this, because we often still portray care of the nervous system as remedial. Oh, well, if you have a mental illness, then you need help with your nervous system. We haven't yet, I think there's a lot of progress, but we still haven't yet gotten to a society-wide assumption that everybody needs to be caring for their nervous system. What I especially loved in the various things you just said, though, is you're pointing out that people who have big dreams for themselves or the world, people who feel a creative calling, or people who would really like to contribute to restoration, peace, regeneration. I think, we need to go beyond sustainability, so I tend to use regeneration, but people who feel those callings very often cannot step into them when they have a dysregulated nervous system. And I'm not sure that conversation is happening, right? We hear people talking about how angry they are at what's happening in the world, or how disempowered they feel, or how afraid they feel. But then the question I'm always asking myself is, well, what are you doing? But so many people are frozen. Can you speak more to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I see so many people on this path of awakening, and they're doing all this stuff. And yet I'll talk to them. They're like, oh, I really want to create this program. I want to do this course. I want to go make this impact. And they're doing all this other work, but they're not going and doing what they're actually called to do. And it's because of that, their nervous system's inability to handle being seen, being possibly rejected, the backlash that can come. And like I have said, that I really believe that your capacity of being the term I use is imperturbable, being able to handle what your nervous system does when you're standing in front of people, telling them what you think, your ability to respond to others instead of react, so that you can actually have communication and not just yell at people about how wrong they are, which does nothing to create change. Your nervous system needs to create a field of coherence and of neutrality to be able to have a conversation with somebody with an opposing view, because otherwise their nervous system and their protection will block everything you say, and you're not creating any change. You're just banging on walls and having an equal and opposite force. And that is one of the biggest issues I see in the social justice realm right now. I hear you're angry, but how are you going to create change? How can you be angry and be communicative and change the energy in the field through your own heart-brain coherence? That's a big word we use in nervous system regulation, heart-brain coherence, which is the ability for your heart and your brain to be communicating at the same time, rather than just speaking your anger, but having a closed heart, being protective. We have to be able to say, this is how I feel, and be open to understanding the other point of view, so that we can actually do something with that energy. And this is a real trick, and it takes nervous system regulation to do it. And so, yeah, I see that a lot of people are on this journey creating change, and they get to a stuck point because their nervous system cannot go any further. And that is where the work is. That's where we need to become more embodied. We need tools to learn how to be in our nervous system while we're feeling anxiety or fear or whatever, and still go forward to what we're being called to do with confidence, even though we may not feel perfect in that moment. To be able to have hard conversations about things that matter and hear somebody's other point of view, and instead of immediately, blocking them, hear them and be okay that they have a different point of view, and allow them to be heard, witnessed, and seen so that they can hear, witness, and see you in return.
It's so vital. I think what you're talking about is quite a large up-leveling of the activist social change movement. Just in the last couple of days, I saw 3 influencers on social media going to lengths to express how angry they are about a couple of recent Supreme Court decisions. And I thought, okay, but like, they were suggesting that the whole point, their contribution right now is to express anger. And that's not necessarily a constructive change-making approach. I mean, it's valid to have those feelings and express them and invite others to express them. But what you're talking about is a much more grounded, centered, values-oriented approach that leads to constructive action and listens to other people rather than just throwing missiles, whether they're words or, tweets or Instagram posts or worse. So
right.
What you're talking about is it's a big necessary change. How do you suggest this can look on the individual level? If people who are hearing this conversation are able to grasp that indeed you're talking about a very appealing but significant up-leveling, what would an individual do who wanted to participate in that?
Well, on an individual level, we have to understand that we have a part in co-creating this reality. And therefore, our perceptions of the world as it is matters. So if you're perceiving, they won't let me do what I want, then you're back in victim consciousness. And the change of the world happens one consciousness at a time. How is it that I am free to choose and do things that I love? How am I free? Okay, I see this energy out there that's stuck in this paradigm, but how can I change my paradigm in my reality to experience the felt sense of freedom, of values-based living, of expression, so that you become someone who is free, and then that transmission starts to percolate into the world. What I think people don't realize is what I've seen in the last few years is this social justice movement of, I'm free to be and do what I want. And, there's that. And then the pendulum always swings. Then the Supreme Court says, oh, no, you're not. And now we're going to do this. And that's because it's in the same dimensional reality. The movement to, I want to be be able to be free and do what I want was created in this consciousness of oppression, and then opposing that and a
opposition.
Swing. And then the pendulum in that reality is going to swing back. And why would you, if you understand the nature of like quantum reality, it is not a surprise that an equal and opposite force was just let out in the field, because the initial swing to one direction was not done from a place of, for many, heart-opened neutrality and understanding and compassionate witnessing. It was, and that's normal. That is sort of the stage of consciousness. And I'm not saying it's wrong. Like typically we go from oppression into anger and expression. Okay, so we did that. Now there's an equal and opposite force of, okay, we're going to oppress this then instead. You have this freedom, but we're going to make oppression here. And that's what's happened. It's the same energy dynamic. In both aspects, we're being asked to lift above the sense of I am powerless, I am being oppressed, I can't do what I want, this isn't safe, that isn't safe. It's still the same paradigm. It's still the same dimension of reality. And I'm sure a lot of people will be really upset with what I'm saying right now. But to me, it's just a principle of physics and vibration. And I'm just speaking like, if you want to change the vibration in your reality, you've got to change how you perceive your situation. I had to do that for chronic illness. I had to perceive that I wasn't being oppressed by Lyme disease as I was bedbound. And that was a real mind leap to do that. But I knew that the law of nature was that if I perceived that I was being attacked and oppressed from illness, that is the reality. I was just going to create more of that. And so I had to jump above that myself. So yeah, that's what I would say about that.
I think that's incredibly helpful. And I want to note for listeners who might be new to you that indeed you have walked this talk. You can learn more about Dr. Katz's journey in some of her other podcast interviews and YouTubes, but you were bedbound for several years with chronic illness, right? We're not talking about feeling unwell for several years. You were completely laid low for quite a few years. Yes. I mean, feel free to talk more about that transformation if you want. Yeah. So I just want to emphasize, you have walked this transformational talk. You're not pulling theory out of spiritual studies.
Yes. And I have walked deep trauma and deep poverty. I was the kid that was homeless. I didn't have parents. I left home early. I was conceived in a gang rape. I have lived deep trauma. I understand that. I didn't live a huge life of white privilege. I was white and very much in a very dark place. Yes, there's privileges in some ways that came just by being part of the United States, et cetera. But I know what it's like to have no opportunity. My mother was illiterate. I came from illiteracy, poverty, homelessness, drugs, alcohol, sex abuse, all of that. I know what that feels like. And I know that to rise out of that place, I had to see life differently. I had to see the opportunities that were gifted to me. I had to have compassion for the trauma that had been passed down from generation to generation and not take it personally what happened to me. I was just one in a long line of energy dynamic. And that the people around me were just as innocent as I was. And that was a huge leap in consciousness to crawl out of trauma and victimization. Wasn't easy, but in order for me to be free and to heal, I had to see things differently and to let go of my resentments and my anger. So.
Thank you for sharing that. You are an incredible model, especially given how young you still are, of somebody who has triumphed over some of the most difficult reasons to be in victim consciousness. And the constellation of those issues that you experienced is really kind of mind-boggling, although I have experienced some of those myself, and I'm sure some of our listeners have. But thank you for saying that, because it really does give a lot of credibility to what you are now able to offer. So for people who might be listening to this, who either are dealing with their own trauma and mental or physical health challenges, which is a good 90% of the population, right? And or really want to be creators or co-creators of change, whether in their own lives and households or neighborhoods or their towns or on a really big scale. What are some ways into this?
Yeah. I love starting with the brain and the limbic system because it informs so much of how we perceive our reality. I love the field of neuroplasticity, brain retraining, even just simple heart-brain coherence practices as offered by the HeartMath Institute. but think of your brain and your limbic system as the filter of how you react, you respond, how you see your past, how you see your future. I used to do a lot of, energetics and somatics, and I have all these other tools as well. But I think you start with the brain and with the actual anatomical structures that are contributing to how you see your world. It's very simple practices. Most people that are doing it right now do it because they have chronic illness, but it is catching on as a way, as brain retraining being something that you do because you want transformation in your life. And I think Dr. Joe Dispenza is one of the biggest leaders of that. Not everybody comes into Dr. Joe Dispenza's work because they're sick, but they're doing it to change who they are. And he focuses a lot on brain retraining. So I do love his work, his books. If you're just starting, and then any type of basic brain retraining program, I offer one, but there are other programs as well. Now, they're typically marketed for people with chronic illness because that's who's willing to do the work. But I can tell you that same program will work for anyone who wants to change their life and learn how to be conscious co-creators of their perception, their reality. I use brain retraining every single day still to co-create my reality, to grow my business, to help my relationships, to help my mothering. So I'm going to give a plug for the, Google the term brain retraining, limbic system retraining. Of course, on my platform, I teach all of it, but, Joe Dispenza's got great work. If you have any other suggestions, I just think that's a great place to start. And from there, this journey opens up of all sorts of nervous system regulation work. But yeah, I start with the brain.
Yeah, I feel like now we should talk about somatics, because your program was a revelation to me in that it goes a lot beyond brain retraining. Mm-hmm. So why don't you give a working definition of brain retraining and then talk about why you've learned over the last decade or two that the somatic piece seems to be really crucial. And I mean, there's no need to talk about my story, but I can certainly say I am finding your program's insistence on the somatic piece to be like revolutionary. So I definitely want to bring this to our listeners.
Thank you. Okay, so think of it this way. We have our brain, and we have our body. And our brain and our body are in constant communication with each other. Our brain has a top-down communication to the body, meaning the brain sends signals to the body, but the body has a bottom-up communication to the brain. So the body is also sending signals to the brain. And between the brain and the body, the nervous system is relaying information. Am I safe? Am I not safe? What do I want? What do I need? What do we think about them? How do we feel? And it's this constant communication. Now, I like to start with the brain. I like to start targeting the limbic system, and brain retraining is a method to basically affect your hippocampus, which is your memory center, to help your limbic system, which is your emotional center of your brain, to perceive that the past wasn't all bad and tigers are not constantly chasing you, even though maybe in the past a tiger or two chased you in the form of a trauma or a bad relationship or whatever. It's not always happening because the brain starts to think bad things always happen. So we need to target our memory center, and we do a visualization practice to do that. We do a few mindful practices to target this particular part of the brain. We're also targeting our amygdala, which is what creates the fear in our brain, through engaging our memories and also engaging a part of our brain known as our right prefrontal cortex, which is our creative visualization center. So we are teaching our limbic system, the past has safety and the future has good things. And we do this through a visualization practice that's pretty simple. And what happens is the limbic system, which is what creates all of your hormones and your sense of stress or safety, it starts to trust your reality, and it starts to send different signals to your hypothalamus, which sends signals to your whole body. You start to send better chemicals through your body. You start to become more in connection with others. You basically calm down a bit by doing brain retraining and help your body to start feeling better, but also just your perception of your life, of your partner, of your children, of who you are starts to shift, because we're changing how our memory center is responding, and we're changing how we expect the future to be different. So once we do that, I tend to also recommend people focus on the body. And we use the word somatics. And that comes from the word soma, which means body. So when I use the word somatics, I'm just talking about being aware of your body. Where are you breathing? Are you breathing through your belly or through your chest? Do you have pain in your hip? Is your heart beating fast or slow? Do you feel your feet on the ground? Getting aware of where we are at in the present moment is somatics. Our body is sending signals to our brain as well. So we want to feel the body and be able to feel the sensations in the body and have the perspective of safety at the same time. So even though I have this pain in my hip, I'm sitting on my chair and I have this beautiful sunlight that's hitting my face, and I have a beautiful family. And even though I have this pain in my body, I am okay. I'm inherently okay. And I've got something to contribute to the world. So we're getting in touch with our body, and we're using our consciousness to be aware of our environment, to be aware of everything we've got going on in our life. And what it does is somatics helps us to become present and conscious. It's a way of waking up to the present moment. Oh, I am here in this body right now. And right now, there are no tigers in this room. And so we tell the brain this reality, and we let our body feel this reality. So in this moment, can I sit and breathe and allow my body to feel there are no tigers in this room, even though I might feel some sensations that are imperfect? That will send a message back to the brain that it is safe to just sit here right now and enjoy this moment, which calms down the stress response. This helps you to be able to be in tough conversations. You know, the ones where you get triggered or they say things you don't like, or the ones where you're afraid to speak your truth. Somatics helps you to be in your body and be like, wow, I feel nervous about saying this, but I'm safe to speak my truth. Or, oh, I feel mad about what they said, but I'm able to hear it and stay in my body and stay in my breath and let them have their reality, and I can choose mine.
And circling back to what we were talking about earlier, this is that different approach to activism or contribution in the world, where instead of being frenzied, angry, threatened, afraid, you then come into this more grounded place that is a lot more empowered for yourself and potentially empowering for others. And I think, for anybody who is an activist or participates in activism or social or environmental change or observes those movements, I think it's pretty clear that this very body-centered, calm, serene, self-aware approach is very often missing. I'll note too, for any listeners who might be really new to this brain retraining and somatics conversation, that using these approaches that you're outlining right now, people are recovering from chronic Lyme, chronic fatigue, various autoimmune illnesses, other chronic infections, anxiety, depression. I mean, the list is quite long. And for anyone who's curious, there's now a whole literature on neuroplasticity, a whole scientific literature on neuroplasticity and how these brain states that you're describing that might to the newcomer just sound like, well, yeah, it's nice to be calm and serene and grounded and aware of your body. Those are actually the brain states that create healing in the body. Whereas most of us today in the modern centuries are living in such a frequent or constant state of stress or trauma that it's no wonder the mind-body system develops all of these diagnosable ills.
Yes, chronic illness is on the most incredible rise. I mean, especially since COVID, and not necessarily because of COVID, but because of the stress that has been induced in everybody's lives and the lack of connection. I have been shocked at how so many people that I know that were healthy all the life I knew them, they're now getting autoimmune, chronic fatigue, chronic gut infections, this and that. And it's because the stress and the lack of presence. I mean, we're on our phone, we're on the computer, we are not somatically present. And it is affecting our body, and it is affecting our health. And we can absolutely influence that through the principles of neuroscience and somatics, and frankly, just heart opened consciousness.
Yes. And we're not only talking here about a lot of individual and familial and community suffering, difficulty, and expense for people who are experiencing all these health problems, but we're talking about limitations on human creativity and sovereignty. And that bigger picture, I know, is so compelling both to you and to me, because whether I'm thinking as a historian or as somebody who's very involved in the sustainability, environmental regeneration movements, or as a teacher, or from a spiritual or an astrological perspective, I think there are dozens of indicators right now that we've already entered an age that has the potential to be a tremendous age of human creativity, collaboration, peace, harmony, healing, restoration of the earth. But it's very hard for us to engage in that as our higher selves when we're felled by chronic illness. So I just wanted to overtly make that connection for our listeners. I know you know that, because again, we're not just talking about individual suffering. We're talking about, can we transform our world?
Yeah. You know, I was just listening to an interview with Dr. Zach Bush yesterday, who I love. And he was saying, like, literally our path, if we do not jump in our consciousness, we are on a path of extinction in, like, I think he said 80 years, because of the way our food and our water, et cetera. And that we
and
cannot,
the state of our microbiomes,
the state of our microbiome. And that if we do not have a leap in consciousness and come up with new solutions, the way that we approach our reality right now will not change quick enough. And when he said that, all I could think of is we have got to learn to self-regulate so that we can access higher conscious fields of understanding. Like if our nervous systems are stressed, we're not becoming aware of higher solutions. We're not downloading, amazing understanding of what to do. We are in survival. We're in a, scarcity mentality, and that will not work much longer. Yeah. We are losing our sovereignty when we are in protection. We do not see solutions. We are in a fight of, I want this and I want that.
In the opposition instead of the co-creativity.
Yes, the opposition. And, again, it's normal to have that anger response. And I want to just circle back to that, because I'm sure people will be like, you're saying to suppress emotions. Oh, no, I am not an emotional suppressor. I think releasing that anger in ways that do not hurt yourself or others is priority. It's part of somatics. However, when you're actually wanting to co-create change, you have to be in a different consciousness. Otherwise, it's just not going to happen. And that reality needs to be understood. And you need to be able to regulate your nervous system to have those kind of conversations, to have the creative solutions come forth.
Yes. Yes, that is truly our next level. And I hope our listeners are as excited as I am, because this conversation is really exciting to me. Okay, two things that I would like to ask you. One is, for people who are listening and they're really intrigued, but this is all really new to them, what are two simple practices that they could learn that I'm not sure if you want to describe practices right now, or if you just want to mention like two tools for people to go look up?
Absolutely. Number one thing you can always do is to literally find your heart and breathe into it. That is going to draw your consciousness from your cell phone, from the person, from whatever into the present moment as quick as anything. Breathing right in, a 5-second inhale, 5-second exhale. Hand on your heart just to feel it. This is going to get your heart communication into your brain online, your vagus nerve, which is a master nerve, engaged. Your consciousness is going to drop into your body, and you're going to actually feel what might be going on in your life. Sometimes when you do this, you start to realize you're angry, or you're afraid, or you're overwhelmed. But that's the stage you need to go through. You need to come home to your heart. Sometimes when you come home to your heart, you start feeling anxiety. You're like, oh, this isn't working. I'm getting worse. No, you're actually feeling what's there all along. You have to start feeling, dropping in, saying, I'm going to choose to be here in this moment and breathe 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out, as long as you can, and then move on in your day. That's one piece that's going to start wiring your presence down into your heart, getting your breath, getting your vagus nerve, which is a master nerve of your autonomic nervous system, engaged and becoming a little more awake. The second thing I think is really important is, like I said, our memory center, our hippocampus, is responsible for so much of how we perceive our reality, because we literally only see the past. And that sounds crazy, but the past informs what we expect to see. And this is somewhat of a quantum principle, but it's also just the way the brain works. So if you can start to engage your memory center on a daily basis in a positive way, you're going to change the way your brain starts to see reality. So at the end of the day, take a moment to picture in your mind 3 of your favorite moments of the day. Maybe you're sick and there's not a lot you can picture, but you're remembering the feeling of the sunshine on your face. So you picture the moment where you maybe walked outside and felt the sun. Or maybe you picture the moment when your child was smiling at themselves and playing with a toy. Or maybe you're picturing taking bites of your favorite meal. But you take time every day to open up the memory files and see them in a positive way. Now, you're going to have a protective part of you pop up and want to show you everything that was bad. And you're going to say, no, not right now. Right now, I'm going to look for the good. And it's going to feel hard, surprisingly. It will often feel hard for a lot of us to look for the good. But what you're doing is you're exercising your brain and your limbic system to practice remembering what was good. And a little bit every day, just take a few moments, and you just do that every day. That's the beginning of brain retraining, the beginning of neuroplasticity, the beginning of somatic presence.
So wonderful. Thank you. Now, as we come toward a close of our conversation, what I would really like you to tell us is how your life feels now, because you are an extraordinary example of someone who came, as you've shared, from severe multi-layered trauma, ended up, not surprisingly, we now understand, as we understand neuroplasticity, it wasn't surprising that you ended up with such severe and multi-layered chronic illness. From what I've heard you say, stuck in your bedroom for months or years on end. So you've really experienced hardship. Tell us what your life is like now, because I think that's a really helpful way for people to grasp all of this.
I feel like my life is literally this magic carpet ride where the universe is just doing me. Like I am being, I know that I'm being asked to create big things. You know, I have this huge platform that literally like just has blown up, and I haven't even tried. Like, you know, I didn't do the business coaching and hire the coaches and take the programs. I just did my brain retraining, got a vision of what I want to bring in the world. And it is just like a fire hose. Like, I feel like truly I'm on this carpet and it's just flying me all over the earth, and I can't even control it. And it's like, oh, tell them your message here and do this there. And it's like, I am being done. I am an instrument of transformation. It feels so beautiful. And my only job is to continue to get my own ego and agenda out of the way about, oh, how should I do this program? Or how should I do this? Like, no, I got to get out of the way and just let the universe work towards me, because it's completely different. I also feel like there's nothing that I couldn't do. Like, I know that I could rewire my brain. If I wanted to climb Mount Everest, I could rewire my brain to perceive myself doing that. I could train myself to do it. I could do that if I wanted to. I don't want to, because I don't like the cold. But the point is that I know I could do it. And that is so empowering. That's the creatrix. That is the awakening of this divine feminine goddess that is within me. I am capable of doing that. Now, I'm also being asked to continue to open my heart in ways that maybe I didn't want to, because, I did come out of chronic illness, but it doesn't mean like I'm perfectly loving all the time to my partner or to my kids. And so I'm still being asked and shown where I have densities and perceptions, and I still use my tools. So life for me is still using some of my tools. I still, go and learn. I was just at a Dr. Joe Dispenza retreat for a week, and I loved it. And so I'm still advancing my own transformation. But I have a vision. I have a vision that I am being guided to. I have a vision of creating a huge change in the medical paradigm as far as how we treat chronic illness. I have a vision of bringing these tools to every single person who has been through trauma that is not privileged and not able to have these tools. I want to bring them to them. And I have a vision that it is this nervous system regulation work that is part of the conscious expansion of humanity that I have been asked to be a part of. And all of those years of suffering, they were for purpose, because now it's not just my own life that I transform, but it's literally thousands. And to genuinely say it was worth every single moment that I was bedbound and heart aching and debilitated and thinking I was going to die, it was for a reason. And for those of you who are suffering, you have no idea how you are going to be able to assist others in transformation as you alchemize your own situation, because you will carry a frequency of knowing that is special, that is unique, that you can help other people who have also felt what you felt. And you can say, I was there and now I am here, and this is how I did it. Come take my hand. Let me help lead the way. It's a beautiful feeling to make impact. It's a beautiful feeling to I don't know. I feel like something greater than me is just using me, and it's just wonderful. It's just wonderful.
Yes. Yes. Thank you for sharing that. And remind me, is it primaltrust.com? Is that the .org?
Yeah.
Yeah. Primaltrust.org is one place for people to find you, and also on YouTube and on Instagram.
Yeah. Instagram, it's primaltrust_Dr. Cat.
Okay. Very good. Well, Dr. Cat, I think your story is magnificent. The contribution you're making is pivotal, and I'm so glad we got to talk. And I am personally really excited to see what you keep creating and bringing forth into the world.
I'm excited to see what I'll be creating too. It's always a surprise. Thank you so much for your message and for your dedication for transformation and for inviting me here. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Humans and Earth. Please share this episode to broaden engagement in the regeneration our world needs. You'll find social media links in the show notes. To explore our other offerings, visit www.humansandearth.com.